Mike Evans. Mike Evans said that he is the missing piece to this team. And I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? I am happy that Mike Evans looks at his situation this way. I don't know if he's the only missing piece. There might be a couple of other missing pieces that they need to fill, whether it's through this draft or in free agency. But I like the signing, and I will say, because I want to get your take on this, I want to get this out of the way. I looked at this through the lens of fantasy football initially, and I was like, oh man, this guy's always injured. And then I looked at his numbers. He might be always questionable for Sunday, but this dude plays. Outside of last year was the only year that he missed more than a couple games. And consistency is why he's so valuable. So we're hoping that last year was kind of outside of the norm, but he is 33, and that is a thing. But give me your take on Mike Evans coming in to be the number one wide receiver for the 49ers.
I have routinely been the cloud and raining on people's parade because I looked at it statistically as well, and what I saw wasn't a statistical blip. I saw what has been a I saw the cliff in what has been a 3-year decline. His
Yes.
yards have declined each of the 3 years. His games missed have increased each of the 3 years, with last year being a cliff. I mean, he missed what, 8 games. And his season didn't get off to a great start. Before the collarbone, he missed 3 games due to the chronic hamstrings that have been a plague in his career since 2019. So the hamstrings are that's a fixed thing. That's something you're gonna have to deal with him every year. And the injury report shows that for the past 7, 8 years. Um, and my question, as always, is, and I tried to find it, and it's kind of hard to research, but I was not in the past 10 years able to find somebody who was over 30 who's had that kind of decline in yardage and increase in missed games have this huge comeback season. So I obviously as a 49er fan, I'm rooting for it. I would love that to happen. But I am firmly a benign skeptic on this move. I would love for it to work out, but I can what I see is all the ways that it could go wrong.
Okay, what was Mike Evans's rookie year?
2015.
Okay. So,
Oh no, wait a minute. Yeah, 2015.
okay, so similarly, I was kind of wondering about, some of that decline. I'm going to give you the starting quarterbacks for Mike Evans, which is why I may be more optimistic than you about this. 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. It was a mix of famous Jameis and Ryan Fitzpatrick. 2020 to 2022, it's Brady. And 23 to 25, it's Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is twice the quarterback of Baker Mayfield. But what I do think is that Brock Purdy and his ability to put the football where it needs to be is going to be beneficial to Mike Evans. I think some of the injury concerns is the same as you. You look at their entire roster and it just seems like they continually get older and older every single year. It's like they cannot, and some of this may be cap related, right? Because if you target a younger player who just hits free agency or target a younger player in a trade in the NFL, the younger the player, the demand for whatever it is going to be is like tenfold compared to what some of these older players make. And so I get that piece. But what I am going to bet on here is that moving into a Shanahan offense, having an accurate quarterback there with you, I think that's going to be beneficial for him. Now, is he going to be able to turn back the clock for all 3 of these years that he has signed? Highly unlikely. I think what we're going to see is a mix of, yeah, he may have to miss a handful of games over the next 2 seasons, but as we know, the Niners are betting big on these next 2 years. So I like the idea of bringing in somebody who's going to fight for the football and who's going to score touchdowns. Now, injuries are always going to be a concern, but I think the bet is if you're the 49ers, well, here's what's interesting. Here, the most interesting thing to me, Mike Evans said, I did my research, y'all. This was the team that was going to best fit what I bring to the table. He turned down, well, not that he turned down, but he chose the Niners over the Bills. And if I looked at Buffalo last year, I was like, man, Josh Allen was able to take them almost all the way, except he didn't have anybody to throw to. And he, like Mike Evans, like, I thought, oh, maybe he sees, this opportunity to just be Josh Allen's buddy for the next 2 years, and they could go do something in the AFC. Because if you look at it from the perspective of where are all the heavy hitters, the heavy hitters to me are still all in the NFC, and you have some very good teams in the AFC, but it's kind of less clear cut about who the best teams are. Maybe there's like, it just seems like Buffalo's like, man, just put it together for 1 year, and you guys should be able to skate into that Super Bowl. So Mike Evans himself sees the benefit of coming to San Francisco for his skill set, for his the last few years of his career as a big time NFL player. But the one thing that surprised me, he didn't look at all of the injuries that this team has sustained over the years and go, there's something there that might not be great for me. Why do all of those guys? Why are all of those guys getting injured? So that he said his research. That is something that an older player should be worried about. Mike Evans, it didn't seem to be a big worry to him.
A couple of things I will push back on is that in that offense that he's leaving from, I don't he's not gonna ever see the kind of volume he saw there that he's not gonna see that here. I just I don't I would be shocked if Mike Evans this year or next sees anywhere near I guess with one caveat. If George which is that caveat affects more than just Mike Evans. If George misses half of the season, which apparently is not what the 49ers or he is expecting,
You think George
I
is
would
on the
think
phone with Jason Tatum going like, "Hey, man, what did you do to get back on the court so fast? I need to get back on the field."
I think that's the only way Mike Evans even sniffs 100 targets. And then what we're talking about when you make the combination of missed games, which you just have to bake into the equation, and the reduced targets, there's no argument for me that he is going to be an asset in the red zone. I guess what I question is for a guy who um, winning contested catches has been his calling card. Again, that's another place where the cliff or the decline and cliff is evident is both in his PFF drop grade and his contested catch percentage, which was the lowest of his career last year. So again, we're going to need a big comeback. And again, I'm rooting for that, but again, I am skeptical. And then I'm always skeptical when a player says he picked um situation X over situation Y because that can be true. But I also know that Buffalo traded for DJ Moore before, so the decision he was making was not to be going in to Buffalo as wide receiver one, which barring some sort of miracle, or I guess we can I don't know, we're talking free agency. I don't see anybody who they're going to sign in free agency who would bump him off that spot. And honestly, I don't see anybody in the draft that's going to come in and be a week one starter. I am much more down on the wide receiver prospects in this draft, and clearly 49er Nation is. I believe that the notion that you would take Cooper or Concepcion at 27 is just nuts to me. I don't see both of them could end up being solid NFL players, but I don't see them being week one difference makers when there are other positions that have clear needs that do have, I believe, week one 10-year starters available to them at both the second and the first round. So again, the way I see overall 10,000-foot view, I see the Mike Evans move as a kick the can down the road situation in terms of rebuilding this wide receiver room, because you weren't going to do it in free agency because your options were basically Dobbs. If you were talking about a cornerstone piece, because Pierce never made it to market, neither did your guy in Dallas. So Dobbs was it. And I don't know that I would have been, jazzed about building a room around him anyway. And then the draft is the same thing. There's just not, outside of Tate, which again is not in our conversation at 26. There's just not anybody 27. There's just not anybody there. But 27 is a whole different animal in terms of a receiver draft. So I just believe I've been saying this since the season was over, that from when I looked at the market, I see this being a money ball situation for the 49ers in the wide receiver room. You try to cobble together enough
Mhm.
skill sets to run the offense Kyle wants to run, and then we look at it again a year from now in terms of getting some young blood in here and really reshaping this room for the future. But at the money, and again, what we haven't mentioned is only really like $16 million in
Yeah.
guaranteed money. So when you look at Mike Evans's body of work, even if he only plays 12 or 13 games, he's done enough to say for 1 year, really, I think that he can be a productive player and somebody that Kyle can scheme around to and we just hope that those 13 games, that a lot of them are at the end of the season, where and we hope that this whole team holistically is good enough that the end of the season matters,
Yeah.
because you can look at our statistics from last year and there were a lot of good things and it was a great season, but you know I believe that regression is a real thing and it's something that we need to be concerned about in terms of, we would hope for regression in a positive way on injuries, but then there were other production things that we kind of outkicked our coverage. Statistically, we were a lot more productive than the numbers would have indicated, and those things kind of regress to the mean season over season. So um overall, I don't hate it because they didn't pay him a whole bunch of money, um and you just hope that he's able to find the fountain of youth for one more last run to be able to stick it in the face of Tampa Bay. And because he has one good season, one good season left. He has a Ronnie Lott Raider type season for us this year. Right, I'm referencing Ronnie Lott's first, kind of season as a Raider. It was great. It was the rest of it that where the decline happened. So I'm hoping for that for Mike Evans, that he has one last ride in him and the Niners are able to benefit from that.